Hello and welcome to the Update program. I'm your host, Brian Perez, and I'm joined, well, once again, not in studio, but here at the Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa campus. We are at the 2015 Senior Pastors Conference, and I've got two guests here with me who are heavily involved in the pro-life movement. We'll find out how they got involved in it, why they got involved in it, and why you should get involved in it. We've got Norma Murakami and Andrea Yim. My goodness, so sorry. This is live, by the way. This is great. How are you ladies doing?
Thank you. Oh, good. Thank you.
We're good.
We're good. Yay. All right. So normally what I do when I have two people on the program is, first of all, I would ask Norma, tell me a little bit about yourself. But since there's two of you, I'm going to say, Norma, tell me a little bit about Andrea.
Oh. Okay.
You guys didn't just meet today, all right? You know. Okay.
Andrea and I are very good friends. I knew her husband, Pastor Brent Yim, since he was a young man, before he was even a pastor. Brent and I had a lot in common as far as pro-life. He really had a heart for the pro-life ministry to save babies' lives. And so he and I kind of, worked together and encouraged one another. And I was just starting pro-life ministry at the time. So once Pastor Brent Yim passed away, Andrea picked up the torch and carried his vision for the pro-life video that they produced. And so anyway, since then, her and I have been working together, and I really love to work with Andrea and promote Pastor Brent's video as much as I possibly can. And so I think we make a good team, and I just, that's who Andrea Yim is. So I'm happy to work with her.
Awesome. Now, Andrea, tell us about Norma.
Norma. I met Norma through my husband, through Brent, and family friends. And I remember when my husband had this vision of this film, a pro-life film. He had gone to Norma, and at the time Norma was running 2 pregnancy centers, and it was just kind of a busy season, and it just wasn't the time that God had for this film to come to pass. And so when my husband passed away, I remember immediately Norma was the first person I knew I had to go to, because Norma doesn't stop. As hard as this ministry is, she is persistent. Mm-hmm. She is, and you need those type of people in the ministry, because the pro-life ministry is a very difficult ministry to be in, to continue on, because it's so discouraging. So I remember just calling Norma like, all right, get me in, like wherever you're at, whatever you do, I want to get this film and we got to show it. And so at that point, we just kind of became friends, and the Lord had something. Norma had stepped away from the pregnancy centers to start her own ministry, A Door of Hope, and we just kind of began to work together in different ministries, but yet coming together in the same vision with the same heart, and just kind of her strengths or a lot of my weaknesses, and then being able to just take some of my husband's passion and desires, and the Lord had given to me to come alongside Norma. And so it's just really coming alongside one another in the endeavor for the same exact ministry and passion and fight for life, basically.
Right.
So
right.
That's who Norma is to me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Norma, how did you get involved? When did you get involved in the pro-life movement, and why?
It was about 10 years ago when I actually went through a very difficult time. I was depressed, filled with anxiety. I've been a Christian like almost 30 years now, but I was just going through a very dark period in my life where I really thought about death a lot, because there was a lot of pain going on inside, and I really did not know where that was coming from. I almost started doubting my Christianity at that time too, because I thought, Christians just don't feel this way, like depressed and anxiety and, suicidal thoughts and so forth. And so anyway, I went to go hear a lady who was doing much what I do, as I speak, at conferences and women's events about her abortion experience. And I remember as she was talking about her abortion experience and how she suffered with the pain of abortion because of her choices, I related to that in such a just silently, I thought, she's describing what I'm experiencing. And so she talked about a post-abortion recovery group. And so I went to that. And honestly, in one night, the Lord healed me spiritually, physically, emotionally, and mentally in one night. And I was just blown away, because I had not felt like that in literally over 25 years. And so I quickly ran to my pastor and his wife. I'm making a long story short. But I ran to my pastor and his wife, Pastor Jack Hibbs. I go to Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. Yay. And I said, you guys, I don't know, but I'm going to this Bible study right now. I've had an abortion, several abortions, actually. I've actually had 6. And I said, and I've been suffering with all these symptoms, and I started going down the list. And so they were so loving and so caring that they ended up embracing me, loving me, praying with me. And from that, we started post-abortion ministry, pro-life ministry in my church, and eventually a crisis pregnancy center that my church helped me support all of these ministries. And so our church became very pro-life at that moment, or that moment in time, like 10 years ago. And so, and now I'm continuing that, that journey of fighting for the unborn, helping women who have had abortions through the encouragement of my pastor and the support. And now we actually opened a pregnancy center that used to be an abortion clinic. Wow. And I took my pastor in there with me. I took Pastor Jack and Lisa with me. And we looked around. I mean, we had already taken possession of the clinic, so it was no longer an abortion clinic. But we looked around, and I looked at my pastor, and I said, why can't we do this more? Why can't we close more abortion clinics and open pregnancy centers? This is like not rocket science. We can do this. And so, of course, Pastor Jack always is so encouraging, and he just loves to, leap out in faith. And so we kind of looked at each other and thought, that's a thought. And so who would have known that I now would be working with an organization called Abortion Free Communities that closes down abortion clinics around the nation, locally and nationally. And so that's another thing Pastor Jack is helping us out with right at this moment.
I don't necessarily want to get personal, but 6 abortions. I would think, and I'm just the average listener, that a woman might have one in her lifetime, maybe when she was young, and you have the procedure and then you say never again. But it's obviously some people go back again. I don't understand that.
Brian, I'm so glad you asked that question. I get that question a lot, so please don't feel bad. I used abortion as a means of birth control. In other words, when you go into your OBGYN, or I would go to a free clinic to get a pregnancy test, they on the list on the wall that says these are forms of birth control. So the birth control pill would be on that list, the IUD, and also abortion was on the list. And so I thought that was a means of birth control. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, this is legal, so it must be okay. And this is, it's on the list of birth control, so it must be okay. So that's how I chose abortion over and over. It was because it was a means of birth control for me. And I do meet a lot of women who have, I speak around the country and locally, nationally, and so forth. And I do hear women tell me that. They say, you know what, I used it as a means of birth control too. And so that's kind of how you justify it in your mind. It's like, I couldn't take the birth control pill. It would make me sick. Of course, I didn't know what I know now. Like, you can try different forms of birth control. But to me, I saw abortion on the wall, the list of birth control, and that's how I kept choosing abortion, which was a big mistake, and it affected me over 25 years later,
right,
drastically.
So did it get easier every time, or like you said, it was just a choice on the wall, so you just went forward with it?
Yeah, Brian, the human mind is very, and again, it's very satanic. I have to say that. You just have to really block it out of your mind and just say, you just desensitize, you just close your mind off to it, because if you really, and then you don't you don't really, I was not raised a religious person, or I didn't know the Bible very well. So I didn't know that there was, you kind of just deny the fact that there's a baby inside of you. However, when you're laying on the abortion table, at some point in time, you realize, I need to get out of here. This is not right. There's just something, and you know what that is, though? That is God. It's the still small voice, God saying, get up, get out. Did I ever listen to that? No. You just turn around and you just ignore it, or you turn it off, or you just think, I'm not going to listen to that voice. So, yes, I do have to say that God was with me and knew and speaking to me, get up, get out, don't do this. But I didn't listen. Just like many of us, we're always, we disobey God, and guess what? There's consequences.
Yeah.
And I had to live with those. And I regret my decisions as a young woman. And I'm still paying for them to this day, not in the way, I know God has forgiven me, but I regret that I don't have my children. I regret that I believed the lie that I should use this as a means of birth control. And now I don't have those children anymore. And so my family would have been a lot bigger. And so now I have 4 living children. So that's really awesome.
Were there ultrasounds? Did you ever get an ultrasound or anything? Do you think that might have changed your mind? If you had...
Back in the day, there were no ultrasounds.
Okay.
And I don't know if I would have changed my mind. I'm not sure, because I wanted what I wanted. I didn't want to be pregnant anymore. And basically that's just the way it is. When we're sinning, we want what we want, and we don't care what anybody else says, thinks, not even God, we just ignore that voice. So that's exactly the way it is. Even if there was an ultrasound, I could have maybe tricked my mind into thinking that's not really a baby. In fact, when I'd walk into to an abortion clinic, and there was somebody out there with a sign, with an aborted baby, I remember looking at those pictures going, that's not even real. Like, they just probably made that up, And so, again, denial.
Denial, yeah.
Because you want what you want. It's sin, and it's horrible. It's just awful. So that's why I'm committed to helping women not make those decisions ever, in their lives.
We do have the technology now where we can see the baby. They even have those 3-dimensional, I forget exactly what they're called. Yes. And just amazing technology. How has that helped the pro-life cause?
Well, actually, it has been amazing. Now that there's the sophisticated 4D ultrasounds, 80% of women who see their babies on ultrasound keep their babies.
Wow.
And so that is awesome. That is amazing. Praise God for that, You won't find those machines, though, in an abortion clinic, because they don't want you to see your baby.
Right.
There are some in abortion clinics, but it's because they want to determine what type of abortion to give you. So if you go into an abortion clinic and they give you an ultrasound, it's because maybe you think you're 18 weeks, but maybe you're further along. They just want to determine what kind of abortion to give you. That's the only reason why they use ultrasound.
Okay. Andrea, the film that Norma was talking about earlier that is it's now been produced. Tell us about the film and how ultrasounds it's a prominent feature in the film.
Yeah, it is. Going back to of course, as a Christian, I'm pro-life, of course. Like, you don't want people to get abortions, but it wasn't really until I saw the heart of God through my husband. My husband was 28 years old, and I remember him on the ground weeping, just like, this breaks God's heart. And I remember it was so awkward. I was like, I don't know what to do right now. My husband's on the floor weeping, but it was a glimpse. So
you guys were married at this point?
We were married at this point.
But did you not know that that this was such a burden on his heart?
The film hadn't come out yet.
Okay.
So this is going way back.
Okay.
So yeah, I always knew that he did, but it was like one night, it was just like, it was like he got a glimpse of
hit
God's.
home.
It was like he knew this is what the Lord had called him to. He was a senior pastor of a church, but also we had a small Christian private school of about 45 kids. And children were he just saw the future for the generation. He knew to raise these children up in the ways of the Lord, and it turned into so long story short, when my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer, he was actually in a coma for 13 days. And I was in the hospital with him, and I was fighting for his life, like praying for him with these doctors. And I'm sitting here looking at life, like how fragile life is. Like my strong, amazing husband, and here's life. Well, the third night of his surgery, it's interesting, and I'll get to your question, but it goes to the third night of his surgery. There was a baby next door to us in the NICU, or in the ICU. And the baby was crying and crying and crying, and it was bringing my husband's intracranial brain pressure high. And they couldn't get it down. The swelling was so high. They were like, we have to move your husband from this crying baby. And I'm like, all right, whatever, just get him away. And we moved him. As soon as we moved him, his intracranial brain pressure came down. Okay, he had just had brain surgery.
Okay.
Came down. When he woke up from his coma, the first thing that he told me was, Andrea, there were thousands of babies crying, and I couldn't get to them. He said, no one was holding them. No one was picking them up. And it hit me like, life. I'm fighting for your life. You're fighting for babies' lives in your coma, and this is the heart of God. And so it was God's perfect will to take my husband home 14 months later. And we looked at him in this film that he had written and directed with, or written with our friends Aaron and Winston Tao, who are now producers here in LA. We said, we promise we will get this film out. And by God's grace, it was so much money. We went, we were just like, Pastor Jack Hibbs was behind the film in support of it, wanting the same vision that Brent had. Actually, they had met Brent and Pastor Jack 2 days before Brent was diagnosed. So, the vision of this film is to artistically capture life and to show the beauty of life and to take it and to really put into perspective that this is a human being. Now, in the film, at the beginning, the girl comes in, she's pregnant, and the nurse is like, okay, are you ready? Are you ready to do this? And she's like, yeah. And it so happened that the doctor's glove got a rip in it, so he had to go change. And during that time that the doctor is changing his glove, the pregnant mom, looks over at the screen, and she's 23 weeks pregnant, and she sees her baby, and she sees this heart beating, and all of a sudden she sees her baby turn 1 year old, taking her first steps, and then the baby turns 5, and they're celebrating and they're jumping in the swimming pool, and then the baby turns into a teenager and they're fighting. It's like normal life, like they're fighting. It's normal life. Like children sometimes can be very difficult and very hard, but then it shows the beauty of her daughter getting married and then having her own family. Yeah. And then it rewinds, and the mom realizes after she sees her baby in that ultrasound, she looks and she says, Leah, her name is Leah. And it's beautiful because it captures life. It captures what's really inside. This isn't a piece of tissue. This isn't blob, and like Norma was saying, because, and it's, there's such a need right now. That's why, the pregnancy centers, they do these banquets, because there's a need for ultrasound machines and nurses to come in to do these ultrasounds for women who are pregnant, who are 11 weeks pregnant, to say 9 weeks pregnant. Look, there's a heartbeat in there. Yeah. There's a heartbeat, and so it is. It's this film is, and it has, I have gotten emails, it has saved babies' lives already. Wow. Actually, one story is when we sent the film to a producer in LA. They're not believers. Him and his wife had just gone in fight. She was going to go get an abortion. At that same time, we sent the film over to him. Hey, you got to check out this film. And they have a baby today. The baby's 8 months.
Wow.
So it's beautiful. It's, and it was always Brent's heart. And now the Lord has given me that passion and that desire to really, it's a tool.
Yeah.
It's a resource.
Right.
Because a lot of times you don't really know what to do, where to go. All you really know is the name Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
You're pregnant. You're scared. You don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so our heart, our desire, and there's two different ministries going on here, but with the endeavor to do the same thing, like for me, I desire to get into the churches and the youth groups, really in the high schools and in the junior high, and to show this film so girls and guys can see the beauty of life.
Yeah.
And to realize this, it's not gory. There's nothing that can't be seen. A child could see this. My children see this, my 8-year-old and 5-year-old, and they love it each time, to get in there and to capture the audience's attention visually, and then to bring people in like Norma to educate, and to provide more resources for people that, whether it's post-abortion counseling or for churches to really, our heart is to really see churches get involved. There's such a need. There's such a need for pastors. And I think that's why I have such a desire to see senior pastors, because my husband was a senior pastor, and to see his heart break. And obviously, God puts different desires on everybody's hearts, but it definitely needs to be a resource available in churches, whether it's a business card of I don't really know what to do, but here's a business card to this film. Go home, watch it on YouTube, projectlife.com, or whether it's the Door of Hope, post counseling. It's resources that need to be available. Yes, it does start with prayers in the church. It does start with somebody standing up and saying, you know what, we need to get a prayer team at our church. But sometimes people don't do it. And so it is up to the pastor to say, you know what, on our front desk next to the secretary or wherever it's at, we're going to provide these resources. If a girl comes in and she comes to our church and she's hurting because she realizes, you know what, I messed up. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid.
That's what I was going to ask you, because like when you mentioned about the you mentioned about the when you sent the film out to the producers in LA, they aren't believers, but they're married. It was a married couple, you said,
a married couple.
Yeah. And a lot of times you might think that abortion is just something that, teenagers or something might, but no, it affects adults, even married couples who decide, no, we've got too many kids already. And then like you just said right now, in the church, whether it's a teenager or even an adult who maybe was involved in a relationship they weren't supposed to be involved in, and now this has happened, and they know it's wrong, they can't just go to their pastor or even to somebody in church and say, hey, here's what I did, here's what I'm thinking of doing, because a lot of churches might, depending on who you go up and talk to, you're not going to see the love of Christ. You're going to see condemnation, you're going to see backbiting and gossip and everything, and people in church may not feel comfortable going up to somebody else. So what do you tell them?
Well, if I can share a story with you, and this happened at my church. It was a women's event. It was like a Christmas women's event, and there was a gal that I knew from church, and she already had 2 kids. She actually came up. I can tell her story because she's actually on one of our videos. But she had this big jacket on, and I was on the prayer team, so I was standing up front. She had this big jacket on, and she was covering, and she came to me, and so I said, so how can I pray for you? And she says, I'm pregnant, but I don't want to be pregnant. And I said, okay, well, let's pray. And so anyway, we prayed, and she was just ashamed, she was hanging her head down. I mean, this was a Christian woman. And so I said, why are you covering your belly? And she said, well, because I'm ashamed. And I said, God gave you that baby. I mean, that baby's created in the image of God. You need to not hide that, I said, did you repent? Did you realize that you've sinned, against God? And she says, yes. I said, then why are you, if you've asked forgiveness, you've repented, you've asked for forgiveness, then you need to, don't cover your belly. I mean, God has forgiven you. And she goes, why? I'm afraid of what people are thinking, just like you said, Brian. And so I said, who cares? God has forgiven you. And so anyway, she took her coat off actually. And so that was really awesome. We prayed. She came to me after the baby was born and she said, I had an appointment for an abortion the very next day. And this is a Christian woman who I would think, and you would think, and all of us would think would know better. And so, but she told me later after the baby was born, she goes, you have no idea. I was so glad that our church has opportunity and has people like you who would come and talk to me and pray for me and encourage me to keep my baby. And this is why it's very important for churches to have these types of ministries, pro-life ministries, because there's hurting women sitting in the pews. There's people who are pregnant. When I ran the pregnancy center, 80% of our clients were Christians. That's terrible. Yes. And like we were talking about married couples, there was a married couple that came in to our pregnancy resource center and they wanted an abortion. We spent an hour with them. They were still abortion minded when they walked out. So we sat there and we cried because we go through our own little trauma too when you are sharing with somebody and they're still going to get their abortion. I mean, it's very devastating for us, the staff. So we pray because prayer counts. Prayer is going to change their heart, not us. We're just we're nobody. Only prayer. God hears those prayers. So this couple comes back 6 months later, knocks on our door, and we're thinking, oh no, she's coming for abortion counseling. They come in and they tell us, here's our ultrasound, we're pregnant with twins. And we're just like, oh my gosh. So it wasn't anything we did. It's the fact that the pregnancy center was there. Yeah. We prayed for them. We were willing. We loved on them. We shared the Lord with them. And they have two beautiful, and this is a married couple, adorable, awesome married couple, both have jobs and so forth, but they were abortion minded. So now we have these twins. They're like 2 years old now. It's just really awesome. So that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, going back to what you were saying is like condemnation. I think it's everything in general, like the church sometimes, and I've realized that even with grieving, sometimes people just don't know what to say.
Right.
Right. And it's you automatically see someone, the first thing you think is sin, which maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. And it is. It's everything that we do, it's approach. And so I think that's why there is instructing pastors' wives, pastors, there is instructing how to approach that. Okay, because automatically you see a young girl, anybody come in and they're like, I'm pregnant, I've sinned. You want to automatically be like, what were you thinking?
Right.
But you can't approach it because that's not the heart of God. Yeah. God doesn't look at it like that. He's like, he's bummed. And yes, there's the initial like, okay, it's already done. Yeah. Like, let's move forward. Let's learn. Let's see how we can help you. And I think that's I truly believe with my whole heart, with churches, with people, with Christians in general, we just need to come with the approach of love the way that Jesus would. Yes, there are consequences. Yeah. Yes, there are, of course there's sin. You call it what it is. Or even if it's not sin, if they're a married couple and they're pregnant and they want an abortion, and our natural reaction is like, don't do that, that's wrong. But that's not going to win the heart of women or men. The way that you win people's hearts is through the eyes of Christ and through Jesus. And some people come in and they're not saved. They don't know Jesus. So before we try to save the baby, we got to get them to know Jesus, because that's what's going to ultimately change their mind, not always. Every situation's so different. There's so many different stories, so many different ways to approach. But I think when we come to it with a non-judgmental, obviously call it what it is, and whatever it is, even if it's not, abortion is sin. It breaks the heart of God. And you call it, but then you move forward and you love on that person. You say, let's get you the help that you need. Let's get you the resources. You know what? Here's $100 for your first appointment. Go get an ultrasound, and I think churches can come alongside that way in different ways. You have to get creative. You have to say, like, okay, we don't have resources, but you know what? We have $200. Can we buy you a car seat? Can we, and then that encourages them. Things. That really opens up a door to say, I have a baby, and hey, after when the baby's born, we want to bring you meals for a week, and so practical ways that churches can come alongside. It's not just like standing in front of an abortion clinic holding a sign saying don't get an abortion, because that's not, people are going to look at you and say like, I'm going to do it even more so now, you know?
Right.
And not always, like I said, that approach does work at times, but really the approach, like we said, we're coming with the approach of coming in churches with senior pastors, with pastors' wives, with, there are resources. If it's $50 to say, you know what, let's go out to lunch, let's just pray. And then afterwards, if you're frantically looking for like a pregnancy center because you know nothing about it, then you do that. You do what you can, and you do it in love. And yes, you bring them to God's word. You show them the grace of God, the love of God, that God is the giver of life and the taker of life. And that is not up for us. And yes, there's going to be fear and condemnation, but no, it is. Everything is about approach. Everything is the way that you love someone, Christian or not, married or not. Approach is everything. Yeah. And there are resources. You may think, I don't have it. I don't know where to go. It's like, you know what? Get the secretary, take the girl out to lunch, pray for them. We'll pay for it. Take them to Starbucks. There's different ways that you're able to go about situations that come in, and I really pray that senior pastors, that they would stand up at the pulpit in January, Sanctity of Life Month. You know what? Show a film, get up there, do a message of abortion. If you don't know, call someone who knows what to do, or just pray for America. Pray, because this is a modern day Holocaust. My children who are 8 and 5, they're just like, Mom, why don't people want their babies? And I'm like, sometimes deep down inside these women do. They know what's wrong. They don't know what to do. They're afraid. Right. And then sometimes you become desensitized and you just live in this world because it's available to you. And so we do need people to stand up. We do need more people to say, like, hey, Norma, can you come talk about how can we close abortion clinics down in our town? Hey, Andrea, can you come show this film? Or, hey, do you guys know anyone that can come and talk to our youth group just to love on them and pray for them? So there's so many different approaches. There's so many. It's the love of Christ that compels us. It's the love of Christ that should compel the people. And you get creative.
You mentioned closing down an abortion clinic. You can't close down an abortion clinic, can you?
Yes.
You can? How?
Yes. I'm actually working with abortion-free communities, and so what we do is we close abortion clinics down in very safe, legal, and practical ways, and we often work with the sidewalk counselors that are there in the front of the abortion clinic. They have their little video cameras or their phones set up on video. They report things. There's just different ways that we find out information on what's going on, because most of the time there's illegal activity going on in these abortion mills. And so, but we just need people there reporting to us. And in this book is there's steps. It's a strategy on how do you get the media, press involved? Who do you call? How do you subpoena the 9/11 phone calls? So if they see an ambulance, a woman being taken by ambulance with no sirens, that's suspicious. What is wrong? What happened? Okay, we can subpoena and get the 911 phone calls and find out what was going on, because sometimes women will die in these clinics and we don't even know.
Wow.
We don't even know.
Yeah.
They just don't tell it because it's there's no record.
Well, that would be bad publicity for them.
Yes, it would. Very bad. So it is possible. So that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm going about speaking to churches, encouraging them, partner with us, and we will close the local abortion clinic in your city, because sometimes people don't know how to do it. They want to do it, but they're tools. We're tools to help you complete this, to do this. And then let's replace them with God-centered pregnancy centers, which a lot of churches are willing to do. I mean, I did that in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles area. An abortion clinic closed, we put a pro-life center in there, a life center. It can be done. We just need to do it. And so
it just seems like such a daunting task that you think there's no way. And like you said, there's a lot of measures that can be, it's almost like you're being a detective or something. And for some people, they might think, wait a minute, I can't do all that.
Tell them how many have been closed.
Yeah, in 1991 there was 2,000 2,175 abortion clinics in our nation. Now there's 548 in our
Whoa.
nation. So it's happening. And so it can be done. And we're here to tell you that, we can do this. So
Yeah.
now there's actually more pregnancy centers than there are abortion clinics.
Oh, wow.
There's actually 795 pregnancy care centers and 545 abortion clinics left in the nation. So it's working. And legislative wise, we can do all we can do. I do. And so I know others who do, but we still need to be fighting on a practical level for the babies.
Yeah.
So not only through legislation, but through practical means. And so that works. That's happening. This broadcast right here is going to help. It's going to help save babies' lives. So we all work together. Maybe some people love doing all that detective work. That's great. That's your gift. Let's put you out in front of the abortion clinic and you be Snoopy. You use your gifts,
Right.
Mine is more public relations, so I'm using my gifts that way. It's like
Right.
I connect people. I network people together. Andrea does the same thing. So it's just so awesome. I love what I'm doing, but because of the 6 abortions I have had, that has driven me to not let any other baby die or any other woman have to experience the pain and suffering that I experience. And that's nothing compared to some women can't even have children anymore because maybe the last abortion they had was the last child they would have ever had. And they were damaged from abortion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So our passion is, it's not going to go away. I tried to walk away from the pro-life movement for 2 years. I took a break, and the Lord said, no, I called
Get
you
back
to
in
this.
there.
Yes. So, and Andrea, I love work.
Because you're tired.
I know. So anyway, and it doesn't have to be this dark, daunting ministry. I mean, a baby's life is saved. That's something to celebrate,
Right.
It's like, it's so celebratory. And we bring that into the church. It's like, I'm not going to get up there and go, okay, we're going to talk about abortion, and it's just a really sad. No, it's like, guys, abortion clinics are closing. One abortion clinic closes, 20,000 babies' lives are saved. I'm just saying. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But, it's somewhere. I can't
Even if
give
it's
you
just a
hard
few
facts.
hundred. I mean,
Yes.
yeah.
And so we want to offer hope to the church, and we want them to come along because it sounds very bleak when you think, oh my gosh, there's so many abortion clinics and Planned Parenthood is so big. Guess what? Planned Parenthood is big, but guess what? We have God on our side.
Yeah.
And we have a small army, but God did amazing things with a small army, and I'm glad to be part of that army. And I don't let Planned Parenthood or the Goliath of abortion scare me at all.
Amen.
And so I'm excited that you guys have us on this show and you've supported what we do by allowing us to speak, Brian. And I'm just very grateful for that. And the churches that have let us in, the churches that have supported us, I mean, it's just, you have no idea. It's just, it's like God's kiss on the cheek, It's like, keep fighting.
There you go. So in our closing minutes, tell us how people can find you and get involved in the different aspects. Tell us about the book and everything.
Yes. With me, with Abortion Free Communities, we actually have a Facebook page, and it's called Abortion Free Communities. You can find us there.
And that's communities, plural.
Yes.
So with an S at the end.
Yes. And so what we do is we post updates like abortionists that sometimes we're putting in jail. So, or an abortion clinic that's closing or something. So there's daily updates that are coming through that I post on there. If you need post-abortion counseling, there's a website there's a link on there. If you want us to come in and speak, there's a link on there. You can have us, come in and speak, things like that. And then Andrea has her way also of contacting.
Andrea, what's your way of contact?
My way, it's the same with it's actually pronounced Project Life. Project is speaking on behalf of the unborn. So I have a website, it's www.projectlife.com, or the easier way to find us is www.projectlife.org. Andrea Yim or BrentYim.com.
Okay.
And you can find all the resources there. Right now, we're in the middle of having a mass production of our films made. Actually, which was neat being here. I just talked to a pastor. They're like, "Oh, we want to do that for you." I'm like, "Okay."
Wow.
So
cool.
what we want to do is have our film available so that if you want a hard copy, you can visit it, and we'll mail you out a copy, and you can use that. So projectlife.com or BrentYim.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you for
We pray
having
that God
us.
will continue to bless your ministries, and don't give up. Don't give up. We're fighting for life out there.
Yeah, amen.
So that's awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks, Brian.
All right, you've been listening to the Update program. The views and opinions expressed on Update do not necessarily reflect the views of the staff, management, ownership, or sponsors of this radio station. We welcome your thoughts. Send them to 3000 West MacArthur Boulevard, Suite 500, Santa Ana, California, 92704. God bless, and thanks for listening.